Hello students, the topic for the day is verbs. These are the words which tell us more something about a noun. These are actually action or doing verbs. To begin with, we'll start with what actually verbs are, what different kinds of verbs are, and followed by how can we use them. What are verbs? A verb is a word that tells us something more about a person or thing. That means it explains something more about a noun. It generally explains what action the noun is doing. It is the most important action word in a sentence. Verb tells us what a person or a thing does. For example, Harry is walking, the ball rolled. Now Harry and ball are the nouns and Harry is walking. Walking is the action or the verb. Rolled again is the verb or the doing word. What is done by a person or thing? For example, student is scolded by the teacher. Now here, student is scolded by the teacher. Here in this sentence, scolded is the verb. What a person or thing is. The cat is dead. The vase is brittle. Moving on to types of verbs. Now we have two types of verbs, transitive and intransitive verbs. Now let's look at the definition. Transitive verb is a verb that denotes an action which passes over from a subject to an object. Now this is a little difficult to understand, so we'll look into the example for better explanation. For example, the driver stopped the train. Now we need to understand the driver is the subject here, stopped is the action and the train is the object. Now stopped what or whom? Now we need to understand and we need to ask three questions to ourselves before defining the transitive verb, that what the verb is doing, where is it, or whom is it being pulled off from. So we ask two questions here, stopped what or whom. So the action stopped is passed over from the subject, that is the driver, to the train. So the action stopped is passed over from the subject, that's the driver, to the object, that's train. Therefore, the verb stopped is called a transitive verb. Now moving on to intransitive verb. This is a little easier to understand because here we do not have any object. And in a sentence where we have a subject but we have a verb and do not have an object, it becomes automatically an intransitive verb. For example, intransitive verb is a verb that denotes an action which does not pass over an object. The driver stopped suddenly. Driver is the subject, stopped is the verb, but there is no object here. Let's go back to the previous slide and understand the difference clearly. Here in this sentence, we had the driver stopped the train. So the driver was the subject as usual, stopped the action, and here we had an object, the train. Now here we can understand the difference that whenever in a sentence we have an object, that is a transitive verb. The verb followed after the object is always a transitive verb. Here we do not have an object. We'll redo it again. The driver stopped suddenly. We have a subject, driver, we have a verb, stop, but we do not have an object. So this verb automatically becomes intransitive verb. Now, main verb and helping verb basically help us in construction of sentences. How do we actually denote a verb before a noun is explained basically through this concept, main verbs and helping verbs. The main verb is also called the lexical verb. This is not taught in your schools or classes. This is just to add on to your vocabulary or your knowledge. This term refers to the important verb in the sentence, the one which shows the action of the subject. Main verbs can stand alone or they can be helped along by some other little verbs, also known as auxiliary verbs or helping verbs. For example, I was happy. In this sentence, was Was here is the main verb. Moving on to the next sentence, I was feeling happy. In this sentence, feeling is the main verb and was is the auxiliary verb. Now, understand one thing. Was is the main verb here in the first sentence and was becomes auxiliary verb in the second sentence. This way, words can switch their positions from a main verb to a helping verb according to the need of the sentence and the specification of the noun. Next sentence. I must have been feeling happy. Now here in this sentence again, as we compare it with the previous sentence, feeling is again the main verb because its position is such in terms of defining the noun. Next example, where did they go? What are we going to do? Be, have and do can be used as main verbs even though they don't involve physical activity. Helping verbs or auxiliary verbs are the little verbs which go along with the main verb. Helping verbs don't show the action of the subject, they just show the tense of the verb. For example, Matt used to like playing golf. The main verb is like and used to is the helping verb which tells us it was in the past. So basically helping verbs actually define the tense of the verb. Let's see another example. What did you do in your holidays? The cat was playing with the string. Now another thing about helping verbs is that helping verbs are also used in conditional sentences. These verbs help to create the state of condition. This we can explain better with the help of an example. Let's see what's the next example. If you work hard, you should get to wherever you want to be. Now here the helping verb has been used for a condition that if you work hard, then only you will be able to achieve what you want to be. Now, an important topic about verbs and tenses. We all know that verbs comes in three tenses, that is past, present and future. The past is used to describe things that have already happened when the action is already complete. Example, earlier in the day. Here something happened earlier in the day. Yesterday, again an action, past action word. Last week, 3 years ago. The present tense is used to describe things that are happening right now or things that are continuous. The future tense describes things that have yet to happen. For example, later, tomorrow, next week, next year, 3 years from now. All these help you explain what is going to happen in future. Moving on, now we start our next topic, tenses.